we are literally losing independent thought in today's times. And as crazy as that sounds, almost everybody who clicked on this video has probably already clicked off this video. With brain rot, with the limit and the decrease in attention span, limited thinking of independent thinking and independent thought, that's now starting to become a thing that's less and less prevalent. And don't get me wrong, I watch other people's and am open to hearing what other people's perspectives are and stuff like that. And so I'll listen to what someone else has to say, but at the same time, I have to be consciously aware of being able to have my own independent thought and not necessarily going with the group think that we have going on that is super heavily condensed in today's times, where this has become a thing where people are losing their power and the ability to have independent thought outside of what they've seen on their device that basically is giving them dopamine, and that's basically the mechanism how it's able to control you, because you're constantly looking at something that is designed to keep your attention span. So when you try to apply yourself and use your mind in any other way and in any other scenario outside of just swiping, scrolling, or like the term doom scrolling, because you're basically just trying to spike your dopamine and spike your natural reaction to stress in a way that's very artificially created, as you know, with these devices. And so that's something that I think is very important, and it's a topic that I am grateful to talk about, because I haven't made an actual long form video in, I would say, over a year, and probably just under a year and a half. But like I said, it's worth talking about, and it's important because, like I said, in today's times, it's becoming more and more obvious that people can't think for themselves, right? And what happens when you can't think for yourself? Well, mentally, you can't use independent thought, right? You can't come up with your own thing, but that's what you need to do in order to grow your mind. I have made countless of videos, and I tell you now that between the last video I made, which was about a year and a half ago, about the fruit that you bear, I can tell you that since then, and then making this video and pressing record already right now, being under 3 minutes already, this is the most I've actually stimulated my brain or my mind or my muscle and use that muscle of independent thought, primarily because, well, you get washed under the current when you have certain distractions and you have certain things that are taking your energy. And there's this thing where you have to, obviously, there's the no free lunch, where there's always going to be a price to pay, per se. That's what it has to do with the no free lunch. But I'm telling you right now, just using my mind and being able to recollect these things is an extremely strong thing that can help your mind. It can help you not only mentally, but physically, emotionally, and spiritually in terms of your growth on your journey in life. It's a huge thing, and I think it's something that I'm going to make sure that I do from here on out. Stop doing all the scrolling all the time. Make the conscious effort. Like, you have to lead with intent. I'm not standing here saying that I'm perfect. All I'm doing is coming to you guys and sharing my perspective. If you so happen to agree with me and we can relate on that, then that's great. Like, you are a like-minded individual. But when we talk about that independent thought is becoming more and more less common, and less people are able to exercise independent thought, is because we're communicating through a screen and through texting and through maybe voice messages and stuff like that. But we have to do things more based in reality if we want to be strong in terms of mentally and want to sharpen the mind. We want to be strong as far as physically, because we know that the technology has effects on our health. Even though it's not really talked about that much, there are effects that the technology has on the health. Emotionally, it's going to throw your natural hormones off that are going to make you feel a certain way. Easiest example is you are lying in the bed doom scrolling before you're going to sleep for hours, and that is going to basically keep your cortisol raised up high. It's going to keep it so you don't produce melatonin because you have a screen, that artificial light that is not what your body is really anthropologically used to. So that's another facet to keep into that. And then of course spiritually, when you're not doing something that is spiritually moving you forward, and I was just thinking about it earlier, how if you don't have something outside of that you can work on, that you can step outside of the matrix or out of the groupthink or out of what everybody else is doing and following that crowd, you can now start to expand your mind, and you can now use independent thought. There are thousands of people across the internet that are experiencing the same thing that I'm talking about, and that are talking about it and speaking up about the, I would call, limited amount of free thought, in the decrease in free thought, in independent thought rather, including free, but and not, controlled by a narrative and whatnot, is becoming, it's an epidemic. So we can talk about how we are just realizing early stages, the effects that over the last, I would say, technology really started ramping up around, early 2000s. That's like under 20 years. We're really starting to see that, and of course things haven't been that progressed until around COVID time, around 2015 till 2020. Things started progressing pretty fast, but then when 2020 hit, things started rolling forward. We had the lockdown, we had all this technology coming out, and people were forced to stay home and do the doom scrolling. I did the same thing, I kid you not. I'm gonna be 100% real. I came back from being in Mexico on spring break when COVID broke out, and the cab driver that we had over there when we were going to a booze cruise one night, he picked us up on the way back to the hotel after the cruise. And, we were all, of course, having a good time. But that's not the point. The point is that the driver, as we were pulling up to the resort that he was dropping us off at, we were talking about it. We said, have you heard about coronavirus? Have you heard about this? Have you heard about it, right? And we'll see what happens if this video ends up getting flagged or whatnot. I'm pretty sure you are allowed to talk about it and whatnot in terms of the YouTube guidelines. I don't know if it's necessarily too fresh where it'll mark it and whatnot, but I'm talking allegedly, right? Allegedly, the cab driver pointed over to the resort after we asked him had he heard about it, and he said, yes, that hotel, lots of going on there. And so this had just happened. We had just heard about, from the media that this is going around and whatnot. So they had people, anyways, short story, to make a long story short, we come back from Mexico because they shut down the border, and I'm graduating that month. So basically, it's immediately, we don't even resume school. We graduated. There's no sort of, what do you want to call it, like ceremony or whatever. But that's been out aside from the point. The point is that in 2020, that is when scrolling became something that started to build at such a rapid rate that it created a environment that we're in today that people aren't able to use independent thought. I've been a victim of it myself, and that's why I want to actually speak about it, because I haven't made a long-term video or long-form video in countless amounts of months, and it's actually been, like I said already, over a year and a half, a little under a year and a half. But the reason is because you can get sidetracked and you can get into these loops where you don't keep creating, but you need to create something every day. You need it by using your independent thought, right? That's what independent thought is. It's you creating that yourself, not being influenced by something external to you. But as we can talk about the environment that we're in today, with the Goy Slop online, with all this stuff, with even, Goy Slop now being referred to as Goy Slop, right? And it's just the way things have gone, have made it to where the situation we're in is, it's very important that you now use your independent thought more now. It's more important now to use your independent thought now than it ever has been in the course of humanity. And the reason is because they didn't have things distracting them. They didn't have all this stuff, all the distractions that we find in the modern world, distracting them from their path and distracting them from what they are doing and distracting them from growing mentally and growing physically, emotionally, and spiritually. They didn't have these distractions. So that is why it is important now more than ever for you to exercise independent thought and use that freedom of thought as much as you can before you start to lose the ability to do so. It's something that you can build, right? If you couldn't build your mind, then how can you tell me that the first video I ever posted on YouTube I thought was terrible? And I knew I didn't necessarily communicate the best, and I'm still working on that to this day. It's a constant progression, right? The more you exercise that muscle, the stronger it gets, and the more that you can, the more load that you can lift, basically. And so there's no way you're telling me that the first video that I made, I'm not speaking better now on this video than the one that I made probably almost close to 3, almost 4 years now. But that's how the brain works and how the mind works and how these states of being work is, if you don't constantly discipline, or rather work and be aware and observe the things that are happening in your reality, then it's important that you take a look at these and widen your perspective outside of what you see online, what you're scrolling. Try to create something yourself. And you